Yeah, is water a big part of the? Well, I understand that that vocal cords are important and everything, but managing the weight and health and whatnot, that's part of an actor as well. And if so, how come there are overweight voiceover artists or overweight actors that are still able to do as many things or even more than
someone who's really skinny,
yeah,
bony? I think, first of all, as humans, we all are capable of a lot. You have opera singers who tend to be larger, and there's more resonance in their chest, let's say, because your voice is rooted. When you're breathing, we can all do this first. So I'll get to your whole question in bits. First of all, if everybody puts their hand on their, right between your, I guess, your lap and your belly button, this is your diaphragm right here. And so if you take a nice deep breath in, you feel this expand, and exhale. It's easier if you're standing, but you can do it sitting. And breathe in again. Most of us breathe here, short breaths. But when you're projecting, you want to be sure you're breathing from here, which can make you a little bit dizzy if you're not used to doing a full breath. I live in Los Angeles. I used to live in New York City. It's very polluted. So you don't really breathe deeply because you're breathing in so much. So we tend to take very shallow breaths and can speak from here. But you really want everything to be rooted here. So take another breath and we'll let out a sound. Ha, ha, ha. So everybody do that. Ha, ha, ha. So you're talking from here. Even when I'm speaking now, I'm speaking from here. If I'm talking from here, I can get kind of the same projection, but I have no support. So it's from here, but it's lighter. From here, I can reach the back of the house, just with using this support. Not any more energy, but this also, when you are speaking in front of people, I tend to get very nervous. If you're supported, it helps to ground you, and that can help you to be you, really. And just think about it, focus on your purpose for being here to speak. So, whether you are large or tiny, you can still function. It depends on who you are. Some people are just bigger. You have a lot of football players, American football, who are huge, but yet they can run farther than a really skinny guy. Because they have that strength and endurance that they've worked on regardless of their body type. An actor, any person, it's good to be fit because you rely on your body, you have more energy, and you can sustain that energy, regardless of how, your actual size. Water plays an important part in all of our lives, but especially you want to keep hydrated because once your vocal cords get dried out, then you start to, they're rubbing together more so that you can get nodes, which are cysts on your vocal cords, and that you have to get an operation. And if you're not hydrated, you run the risk of hurting yourself. Just laryngitis, which we all have gotten from time to time, going to a sporting event and you're shouting because we're all yelling from here and using all this instead of going yes, yes, and talking from here. Totally different experience. And the person who's going wah, wah from here is going to lose their voice a lot more than the person going wah, wah from here. Simple, whether they're drinking water or not. But having water is going to help you more than having other liquids with sugar or anything else.
I wish I was recording this.
You're going to have to just remember it. It's just, this is a live event, which should never be repeated. Yes.
What is the process to create a voice for a character? Is it something you come up with? Is it the creative team? Does everybody kind of put input into it? How do you develop a certain voice for a certain character?
It's definitely all of that. So if we're talking about just cartoons, we take it into two different branches. One is when you are looping something, doing ADR, which is like for Pokemon, for instance, the picture is already there. So I'm filling in the lip flap, so dubbing it. And also in movies too, there's looping where you have to live picture, whatever. But we dub a lot of animation, anime. So for that, there's also, let's just use Pokemon as an example. There have the original Japanese voices. So when we were cast in that, they wanted the voices to be close to the original. So we were listening to that. Then we were all cast. Then there were 2 directors and engineers, and then a huge amount of people who weighed in on what the voices would sound like. So, can you come in, Veronica? I'll keep it out there. Please come in. Come in. You can come sit up, or you can stand out. You sit at the desk. Wherever you like.
That's fine.
So that alone, I heard the original voice and was able to kind of come up with what I thought it might be, and then through all the other input, I kind of figured out where to go. And specifically Ash, in the very beginning, sounded one way and was kind of allowed to, within the first season, drop into kind of where he stayed the rest of the time. Because there were fewer people having their input.
But like in general, you audition and that's you. You make up the voice. In that sense, when you audition, they have, sometimes you get the side which has like, you're auditioning for this, and you have your lines, and usually in the beginning they have a character description. So they'll say like, this character is 10 and it's a boy. Sometimes that's it, and other times they say like, they have a more in-depth thing of the character, so you get the idea of the character and you might find out like, are they Russian or are they American? And so you'll have that idea. But in general, when you're creating a character, it's kind of on your own in the beginning.
Especially when there's no picture already.
So you audition and you kind of you just come up with the voice that you think is right. And then if you get the job, then they'll work with you from there. But in the beginning, it's mostly you just kind of doing it.
Right.
No matter whether you're dubbing it or it's relayed, which is they do the voice before.
Right, relay is just voice first. And you also, you do have to kind of take a stab and just, welcome, and just kind of imagine what the character might sound like, and you can do 2 or 3 takes, or 2 or 3 tries, and then you send those in. Sometimes you audition with a casting director in the room, sometimes you audition from home, alone, just doing little voices. So it really does depend. And when you're working on a show, then other people do weigh in, for sure. And they have you do it many different ways, which is why, back to the original question of is voice acting acting, your acting training really comes in because you have to be able to come up with characters, but also take direction and be willing to just totally change it on the spot. A lot of times you have a job and I'm doing this one character and they say, oh, can you just do this? Can you? And they just really throw it at you and you have to come up with things right there. Yes?
Of all the dubbing mistakes in all the animes and cartoons you work in, what is the best one? Like I know in Pokemon they do stupid stuff like, oh, Arcanine ends up being Bulbasaur or something like that, you know?
Right.
Like what's the funniest one that you
Gosh, I don't know. One time I worked on a whole show that it was a boy, and then at the very end we found out it was a girl disguised as a boy, and the guy directing it didn't even know. I guess this was his first time. And so I said, well, I would have liked to have known that in the beginning. He's like, oh, it's fine.
Did you just go with her? You didn't have to
I found out at the end. Like at the end of the show, when it was revealed, it was done. Everything has budgets. And there's no way that we were going back to redo anything. It's fine, that came across.
What show was that?
I cannot say. But, I mean, you know, there's things like that. Oh, it was Ash is a girl. Spoilers! But it's, you know, things like that, we don't know because most of the things that I do, I show up and you just start. So you don't see it ahead of time, you don't read a script ahead of time, you don't, you know, it's just right on the spot. So for that, we did that whole thing. When you're dubbing something, you only do your lines. So something can be 2 hours long, but my lines might take an hour to do. So that's it. So I see the whole show, just my lines. So unless I watch it later, I don't know what happened when I wasn't on screen. No, but some, the directors usually say, this is kind of here, and this is the important part because we're finding out this. Often they'll tell you that, but not always.
But usually you have the engineer and they're the ones who are behind the computer and they're the ones cutting the voice and adding it, fitting it to the flat. And So usually you don't have a ton of dubbing mistakes because a lot of the people working on that are very professional and they have to comb through it to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah, and we also don't have a lot of time to goof around. So I know there's a big thing about outtakes and things now, but usually if you mess up a lot, you're not going to get hired again. So sometimes people will do something as a little joke because they have a little extra time, let's say. But for the most part, there's no goofing around. You just get in. We're creating stuff, so that's fun, but it's not like a huge party.
You have a little, like, you might do a little fun or something.
Something. Because things are funny. I mean, even any show, it's just weird. A lot of cartoons are weird. And so you have to have a sense of humor about it. That there's not a lot of time to just make a lot of jokes, unfortunately. It's more at a convention where you can go like, yeah, I thought that was really strange. But that's where it gets really fun, I guess. Yes?
Playing Ash as he was like a male character and a female, how is it like changing the voice to male? Is it harder or than casting a male human to do a male?
Yeah, oftentimes I think women are cast as younger boys because they're, male voices change, and once you get kind of above that crack in the voice, it's hard to go back down. And not to say all guys can't do that, but luckily most don't, so I get those roles. And so, for me, it's more about the energy and who the person is than I'm playing a boy or a sheep or something like that. It's really kind of figuring out who they are. When I played Ash, his voice he's kind of here. So I have the mic here, and I'm kind of in this zone, and that's where the voice comes from. At the same time, I was playing Amelia on Slayers, which is another anime, and her voices are really high, and so I'm really kind of up here, and Ash is down here, so it's a different physicality for me as well. Not so much, you're zooming your voice all over the place, but I don't think of it as, I've got to be down here because it's a guy, as much, but it certainly has a small part to do with it, but it's more the energy of the character. When I do audiobooks, I do all of the characters, so the narrator and then every character as they come through the story, and there, it's more in my head, because you can't move, you're sitting at a table, and with your mic and just reading your book.
You have to be very quiet.
And still, so I think about, I move all the characters around in my mind, and then I'm shifting it through, and I imagine their physicality, and that's how I place their voice. But I don't think of it only like, this guy's deep, and she's up here, and this one's getting, I kind of place it that way, but when I'm acting it, I don't think of it that technically. Yes?
About doing a long series, does the voice get tedious every once in a while, or is it more like, or do directors give you a curveball or something like that every once in a while to keep it fresh?
It's never dull, never tedious, because every moment, every moment is new. And so it's the same thing, like, I guess I do get tired of myself sometimes, as we all do, but it's better than real life, because you have to be someone else and tell his story, and as he's telling his story. So you are present in that moment, more than you are for yourself. But it's always a different story. Every episode is new. So it doesn't get boring.
But also, like, when you were recording, did you, because I don't remember, because I was so young, but when you go into the studio, like for Pokemon, for example, did you go in, like, once every week to do it, or did you do, like, sessions during the week, a few sessions, like that kind of thing? Because I would feel like if you just go in once a week, then it's kind of new every week. So you just do it one time. Like, how many times?
Well, sometimes twice a week for 4 to 6 hours. And then other times, I worked on other shows at the same time as Pokemon, and I would have an hour here, an hour there.
In that sense, like, the voice doesn't get, you don't get tired of doing the same character, because it's kind of new every time, because you're not doing it, like, the whole day or every day,
Right.
It took like 2 hours, so it's kind of different.
It's always new. And also, I toured with a bunch of shows, and so for the whole year, we did the same show in theater every day. And every night, you're doing the same lines to a different audience, so every time, even that's new. So even if you're doing a show for a long run, every performance is different. You're not just going over the things, or like, Ash gets shocked by Pikachu, it's another, you know. It's always new because you're in that moment. You're creating the reality of that moment for, you know, whatever you're doing. So definitely it never gets old. I could have played Ash forever. And it's such a great character.
Did you watch the whole show?
Sometimes I did. Rena was little, so we would watch Pokemon on
That was the
mornings.
only show I was allowed to watch in the morning before going to school, so we watched it
We did watch some of them.
every day.
But I was making lunch, so
Yeah.
I didn't watch the
So
whole thing.
I watched it when I woke up, but
Yeah, we would watch it. I haven't seen all of them, but we did watch a lot of those. Yeah, but that's the only way I would see it. Yes.
You said quite often using your lines.
Yeah.
Are you never in a situation where you've got the other voice actors there as well as your live acting?
So we, for Ninja Turtles, when I was on that, we were all in the booth at the same time. And there are some other shows that I work on. Astroglass, there are 2 of us in the booth, and 3 people are in Boston. We record our stuff in New York, and then the Boston cast part does theirs, and then they put it all together.
that's because you're doing it.
You're not
That's
dubbing
pre-lit
it.
though, so you're doing it pre-lit, so they haven't drawn it yet. So
Right.
whatever you say, they match it to what you say.
Right. And then for dubbing, it's always one person at a time. And I think that's a budget. Because you're matching the flap and they can stop and go back. Sometimes you have to do one line 6 times because it doesn't fit right. And more of it is about fitting it. Then for the most part you can get the emotion fairly quickly if you know the character already, but the fitting it into the flap is sometimes difficult.
It's just an efficiency thing.
I think so. Yeah.
Do you prefer to do it with the other actors or is it?
I definitely prefer to work with other people because there's more of an energy, and just like when you're doing a radio play, you've got everyone together, and it makes it a more exciting experience. And even though you can't really make up your lines, you're playing off of that energy and picking up on that. Most of the shows I work on, there's no improv. It's all, they really want you to read the lines. Some shows are.
Like some shows, people are encouraged to do improv, like they're only given some direction and then you're supposed to do it. Like you just have to make it up. And so in that sense, doing it with the group is better because then you kind of play off of that.
Right.
You don't get that.
No. So it's you're alone, but you're with yourself. So that's kind of exciting too. Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. Yeah. So it's both of them are great, but I prefer working with other people. Yes. I think Ash is the most difficult because the voice is the most challenging. Really the most difficult parts I have are ones that I have a job, let's say, January 1st, and I don't do that character again until March 3rd, let's say. So I have all this time in between. And it's, I have to really construct who the character is so that when I hear the voice again as a reference, I can jump right back into who they were, even though I created it a long time ago. Working on a show every week, you kind of know the character and you can just pop right back into it. But I think it's the ones that I'm more separated from, with time. That's the hardest thing. The easiest ones are really evil characters who've got low voices. Those are the best.
You can do that
Anytime, because it's more like who I really am.
Yeah. Yeah, she's so mean.
Really mean?
She's the meanest.
Thank you. And I play a pig. It's kind of like stuffy. This is super easy because it doesn't tax me at all. And I can have
cold too.
it just works right in. I know. But they all are. It's more being able to really focus. I think any of us can say when you go to work, you have to find a way to focus on that task and put everything else aside. And nowadays that we have our phones and checking, something pings in, or you've got to check your email or all this stuff. I think focusing, and regardless of what's happened in your life, the difficulties you're having, the joys you're having, you have to just focus. And that has become more and more difficult with everything else that's going on. So that's not an acting thing, that's a life thing. So that's my constant battle.
But it's good, like, when you have a good director, you have a good engineer working with you, it's not hard because everyone have like your team,
Right.
in your sense, like you have people working with you that are very good at helping you stay on track, and you just keep moving so that
It's much more exciting, and you can focus, and it's you're
being in
creating
an area
something.
where it's good.
Right. Creative. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any advice how to laugh or cry when voice acting?
Okay, laughing for me is one of the hardest things. Crying is easier. I know, Ash has a weird laugh. Because for me, it was just weird to laugh as him. I don't know why, but he's a pretty joyous guy. I think, first of all, you have to play the moment, whatever the moment is. But sometimes having to just like, you just laugh, it's kind of odd. So if you're laughing in it, and then we stop and go, okay, can we just do the laugh part? Okay, can you do that again? But make it, his mouth goes like this, so can you make the laugh, so when you're getting technical with it, it gets more difficult. But ultimately, the lines kind of bring the joy out, and the same thing when you're in, setting Butterfree free in Pokemon, for instance. It's not hard to find that emotion, and when you're sad, it's harder to speak, and there's, but as Ash, you can't hesitate, so that emotion has to be in there. It's really playing the moment, I think, and that's where I think partially your acting training comes in. I do cry easily at commercials or whatever.
Always.
So,
Always.
So it's easier for me to cry.
Crying is love.
My life is sad.
Yeah.
It's difficult. But so I think you find the truth in what you're playing, and that helps to bring the emotion out. But you also, as an actor, you can't just be crying, because when you cry on stage or in a cartoon or whatever, narrating a book, you don't allow your audience to experience it as much as when you are holding back. That when you watch any interview with an actor, I think it's mostly actors who are telling a story, or in a movie where the person is talking about something so emotionally deep, and the more they hold back and don't allow themselves to cry, the more you, as the audience, are going to cry. So that's part of, as an actor, you've got to hold it in, because you still got to get your point across. And if you're just blubbering away, the audience has nowhere to go, because they feel other things. They don't feel your story. So that's where you've got to kind of hold the line.
Onions, too.
Onions, stick them in your eyes.
Have onions on
Pinch
hand.
yourself.
Chop it up all the time. Then the tears will fall.
No, it's kidding. I'm kidding. Because otherwise, because you know what though? If you had onions in the booth, it would smell so bad. You would actually be crying. But onions do make you cry. There's a lot of things when people on screen have things, they do a lot of different things. But for the most part, if you are in the moment and not necessarily recollecting something that happened in your childhood, but if you're in the moment, you can cry if you need to. Or maybe if you can't bring tears, you don't need tears. So, yeah. Yes.
So how did you initially get into voice acting? Was it just an opportunity that you tried out, or was it something that you wanted to do, or how did you find the voices? Were they already in your head, or did it just come as your career went on, basically?
This is so personal. I do think in a way they were always in my head. I started acting when I was 5. I was in my first play, and my parents are actors, and it's kind of just in my life. But I never set out to only do voice-related work. I'm an actor. I love acting. I love everything about being an actor. Most of all, working. And for me, my first voiceover job was during the Batman stunt show. I did the voiceover for that show, and that was my first job as a character voiceover. And I was doing stage combat, so it's not really related at all. But, and not that led me to something else, but the more you work in your profession, the more confidence you get. And so certainly the next time I had an audition for something, I was like, yeah, I know how to do this. I know how to put on my headphones, I know my position at the mic, I know where I am. So I'm not thinking about that when I go to an audition, I'm thinking about the character. And then I got my first anime by working on a monologue with my acting coach, it just happened that someone called him that day to say, can you recommend someone who can do a high girl's voice? And I had just been working with him, so he recommended me. I got cast in that and then got cast in other things. So in that sense, I kind of fell into it. And now I mostly do voice-related work. All kinds of things, though. I mean, if you're thinking about being an actor, doing voice work, I highly recommend getting as much training as you can. But really, what you want to do is work in your field. Before I started doing cartoons, I volunteered reading from blind. I would get to the studio and just open Entertainment Weekly, and I would have to read things cold, which means no rehearsal, not even reading it through beforehand. I helped at a children's theater, and I did their auditions, and the sides were laid out. There were like 15
scripts.
The 15 scripts, people would come into audition, and I would just have to pick up one and read opposite the person coming. So I worked on my cold reading, which is not rehearsed. So that kind of thing, I got experience doing different voices, working off of people. And then I toured with theater companies for a couple of years, on the road. So all of that stuff kind of fed into that, but I do language programs, I do commercials, I do audiobooks, I do, you know that IBM Watson, did you hear of that? I was one of the 4 people who worked on that prototype, which was sitting in a room and just recording and recording and recording, thank you, by recording and, you know, like stuff like that, so that to pay your bills, to have a career, many, many, many different jobs that you will have. And everyone is an experience. You know, it's not just Pokemon became popular, but there's millions of things I've worked on that nobody has ever